finding employment. And so before we get started, I just wanted to go through a few quick things. Please be sure during this presentation to have a notepad and a pen. And if you don't have one, feel free to run and get one. Designate an area on the pad as to do, because there may be some assignments, some tasks that you will be asked to complete during this week, you know, between today's session and next week's session. Please avoid distractions. Within the 2 to 3 hours we're together today, we're going to cover a lot of information, and then you're going to receive a guide that will complement the information. So if there are distractions, you may miss important information that is essential to your finding employment. We will finish before 1 p.m. and then we have breaks at the top of the hour. So every hour on the hour, so at 11 o'clock or at 12 o'clock, we're going to have a break for 10 minutes and then we'll return after the break. Now you have a chat box on your control panel, and you could ask questions by entering your information, entering your, not the information, but entering your question in the chat box and then asking questions. Now for those of you who are watching this video, obviously this is a video and you don't have the ability to chat with the presenter. Now every session there's a video that will be sent to you on the session along with the guide, so that you can go over the information and you can assimilate the content and then do the exercises, because every session accompanies exercises and assignments that you'll complete. I'll go over that in greater detail as we go along. So about this training has been 11 years in the making. We didn't start out from the get-go having 6 sessions, 1 session a week. There was many trial and errors throughout the 11 years that we've been developing this program. And in 2012, we stumbled upon a system, the system you're going through right now, that worked amazingly, and it helped put people back to work. We focus only on what works. There are 6 sessions, and we currently have a 70% placement ratio. Now in 2012, October was our first class. We graduated 56 individuals, and 86% of those people found employment. Now among the 56 who graduated from the program, and in fact in every class, the majority of the people, the majority of those who attend the program are among the long-term unemployed. And long-term is defined by someone who has been looking for employment for longer than 6 months. And 86% of those people found employment. Now I want to just quickly go over 3 of those people. One of them was Gloria. In one of the sessions, there was this lady sitting on the right-hand section of the room. She was, more seasoned, about maybe 70, 71 years old, and she was very quiet. And I thought to myself during a session, if there's anyone that's going to have difficulty finding employment, it may be her, because she was very quiet. She didn't engage. At times, it seemed like maybe she's not even paying attention. And when the session ended, on the 6th week, she approached me and said, "Fred, thank you. I'll be in touch." Well, sometime later, I received an email from her that read as follows: "After your approval, I sent your resume to 3 ads on Craigslist. The 3 called me back within 2 days for an interview. 2 called me back again. I'm proof that the format works." And she got a job as an accounting clerk, and it was precisely the kind of job that she was looking for. I'm sharing this with you only so that you know that the content that we'll share with you throughout the 6 weeks is part of a content that's been tested and tried out. And the last thing I will ever attempt to do during these sessions is to waste your time, because your time is of essence. And if you're going to invest 2 to 3 hours every week, we want to make sure that at the conclusion of the 6th week, you have something to show for it. I'm going to also show you Colleen Houston. She was from class 4. and she couldn't find employment for 2 to 3 years. I mean, she really had difficulty getting back into the workforce, and she is now the center coordinator for the Don Beal Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And it's the kind of position, exactly the kind of position that she wanted to have is what she received. And then Chanel was from class 5, and she wrote, "I'm happy to inform that I got multiple offers last week. All of my hard work paid off. I'm confidently say your resume format is such a powerful tool. My callback rate is almost 70%. These are emails, and we get emails similar to this on a regular basis from applicants. Now, back in 2013, in August of 2013, we stopped the program, and that was mainly because of me. I was accepted into UC Berkeley, their pre-law program, and it wasn't until last month that I was able to restart the program. So we are picking up at class 10, and you are part of a group that's restarting this program after a year of hibernation. So we want to welcome you to class 10. I'm going to go over some of the class rules and exercises. So to do that, let me just pull it up for you, and you have access to it through this link. You should have received, actually you haven't received an email, but you will with a link to this PDF. So on this PDF, let me just make it a little bit larger so you can all see it. You're going to see the program dates, right? So session 1 through session 6. And I want to quickly go over who will succeed in this program. Remember, I promised you I don't want to waste anybody's time, because time for everyone in this call is of essence. Every month you don't find employment, it's costing you your salary requirements. So if your minimum salary requirements every month is $4,000 a month, every month you're out of a job, that's what it's costing you, right? So we want to make sure you have these components I'm about to share with you. And if you don't, if let's say as I'm going through this, you determine, you know, this component you just shared with me, I don't have, then it may be a waste of your time, right, to go through this program. So the first one is the person who succeeds in this program looks for the positives in life. You know, when you go through life, we all see the same thing, right? But people arrive at different conclusions looking at the same situation or the same thing in life. For instance, two people could be standing at a party looking at the center of the room. Think about this for a moment. Imagine two people standing side by side, focused on the center of the room at a party. There's a group of people in the center of the room looking at them, laughing, you know, in an amusing way. The guy on the right looks at this group of people laughing, looking at his direction, thinking, hey, they're laughing at me. The guy on the right may look at the same thing and think, they must like me. So you have two different people with two totally different conclusions, right? And those conclusions will impact their reactions, will impact how they view life. So looking at things in life in a positive way is really important. When you go to an interview and you're talking to a hiring manager, you either see the positives about that hiring manager, you see things from his point of view or her point of view, and you see the environment and the circumstances in which you're in a positive way, or you see it in a negative way. It's impossible to do both, right? We know that both positive and negative thoughts cannot occupy the mind at the same time. One or the other will dominate your thought pattern. So that's number one. Number two, the person who succeeds in this program strives for excellence. Now, this program is not magic. There's a series of information you're going to receive, and then there are exercises. I'll tell you right now that if you don't have time to complete the exercises, then you're going to have a difficult time plugging yourself into the program, right? Those who succeed, the reason we have a 70% success ratio is because there are 30% who either believe their original resume is good enough, or they just don't have time to do the exercises. And you know, at our board, we talk about how do we increase this number? How do we make it 80% or 90% or 100%? Well, I'm convinced we're going to stay at 70%. right? Or 70-some%, because there are just some people who are going to go through this training and for different reasons, they're unable to do these exercises. So striving for excellence, and then if you look at the very last, this one right here, completes the assignments, those go hand in hand, right? Excellence means doing what it takes to succeed, right? And being the best at, or striving to being the best at what you do. And in this line, being the best at securing employment, at plugging yourself in with the employers you want to work for, you've got to do the assignments. Number 3 is relentless in the pursuit of their goals. Those who succeed are relentless in their pursuit of achieving their goals. Let's see, next one, understands the laws of success. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about that, the laws of success. Different people may interpret what that means, but the way we interpret it here at NEC is this. Law of success is to do things for others without expecting anything back in return. Now, you may say, well, how does that have anything to do with success? Well, you see, those who succeed do not look at things internally. They don't think in terms of me, I, what have you done for me? What can you do for me? Instead, they think in terms of what can I do for you without expecting anything back in return. And there is this, whether you call it a magnetic field or you call it something in the universe, or there is this force that I think very few people can explain, but you can point at evidence that it exists, and it is this force that brings success to you when you help others, right? And this is evident in networking. When you network to get connected in with the right employers, you can either network by thinking, hey, do you know someone that can help me find a job? So that's thinking about me. Or you can say, hey, how can I help you find employment? You see, when you help others in a networking scenario, it's impossible for you not to help yourself, right? So when you're connecting with people and helping others find employment, you have this energy that comes back to you. And that's only in a networking environment. I'm talking about right now in this class. It seems there's 23 of you on this call. Starting session 1, you want to think, how can I help the other 22 to have a better life, to find employment, to be successful? And that's the law of success. So if you think, well, I can't do that, I'm so worried about my own situation, I can't help someone else, I think the foundation for success is already going to be in trouble. Is already going to have a weak pillar going forward. Next one, shows empathy towards other people. Well, we kind of talked about that, right? So always look at things from the perspective of the other person. Using words like, well, he should have known better, or, well, if he's unemployed, it's because he's not trying hard enough. These are evidence that we're not seeing things from the point of view of the other person. When you go to an interview, if you say something like, well, they should have hired me because, then you're not seeing things from the other person's point of view. Seeing things from the employer's point of view is, well, let me see, if I was that person, if I was that employer, why would I not hire me? And really thinking about it from the other person's point of view. Okay, so now let's look at who will not succeed in this program. The person who does not succeed in this program is someone who blames the world for personal defeat. They always look outside of themselves to see why they're not succeeding, as opposed to thinking, if I'm not succeeding, it must be just me or something I'm doing. See, if you're an employee right now, whose fault is that? Well, the truth is it's nobody's fault, right? But when you think about it, whom do you hold responsible? Is it your previous employer? Is it employers who you've interviewed with but haven't seen your assets? Who's responsible? And I argue that the only person that's responsible is you. And I know that sounds harsh. I don't mean to be harsh, but it's the truth, right? When someone goes to an interview and says, I was viewed as overqualified, or I was told I'm overqualified, well, no one can assume you are overqualified unless the information you communicate sends off that impression, right? So the only way someone can assume you are overqualified about a job you are perfectly qualified for. You see, when you go to a job interview, you're interviewing there because you think you're perfectly qualified. Not that you're overqualified, but that you're perfectly qualified. Otherwise, why would you go to an interview? How many of you on this call would apply for a job that you would be bored at, that you know you would not like, that you would be overqualified for? The truth is, yeah, sometimes you may settle for a job a little less than what you would normally be able to land, but the truth is you think in terms of, I'm perfectly qualified for this job. So when is it that an employer would think, no, you're not perfectly qualified, you are overqualified? The only time they would conclude that is if the information we present to them conveys that message. So here's my question. Who conveyed that message? Who conveyed the message that created the conclusion for the listener or for the receiver that you are overqualified? Well, we did, right? And starting today, I do not hold you responsible if you're overqualified, as long as you follow our principle, as long as you follow our strategy, everything we share with you. If you follow it, I hold me responsible. If you follow everything that we cover and you still are viewed as overqualified, or you don't get a response from an employer, I hold me responsible, because I didn't update myself on the employment market. Maybe there is a change that we were not aware of, and I would tell you that if that was the case. I would tell you that let me investigate where we went wrong, and we update ourselves so we don't make the same mistake for everyone else. However, I will also point out, if you are told you're overqualified, or if you don't receive a response from an employer, I will tell you exactly why that is. I will point it out for you, okay? So that, and that's something we'll do throughout the training session. Let's see, who else will not succeed? Someone who expects a job upon graduation. So you don't expect a job because no one can guarantee a job. But we can work together on gaining employment. The person who doesn't succeed is someone who disregards the laws of success. We talked about that. And someone who does not follow up. So if you have strong follow-up skills, then you're already ahead of everybody else. Okay, what can you expect from this program? Upon graduation, you can expect the following. A resume that produces callbacks. Again, if it doesn't produce a callback, I'd like to talk to you if you're a graduate of the program. So if you go through 1 or 2 sessions and you don't complete the exercises, then you're not part of this category, right? But if you graduate the program and you follow the assignments and the instructions, then you can call me back anytime. We have these sessions. You can come in after graduation and we can look at your resume and see why you're not producing a callback. And like I said, 99% of the time, I have to say 100% of the time, because I haven't had a situation otherwise, it's always something you didn't do on your resume that we talked about in the session. I haven't had a scenario where I had to say, boy, you did everything and you're still not getting callbacks. I haven't had that scenario occur yet. I'm sure it probably will occur sometime in the future. You can expect from this program a clear, defined career path. You can expect a larger network. You can expect invitation to events and group outings with your class. And you can expect access to a career coach 30 days following graduation. What we expect is the following. Complete the exercises, represent NEC professionally at interviews, and report your placement date. This third one is really important because these sessions are free to all of you. The material, the course material, is all free to all of you. All we expect is that you let us know when you are placed. And usually this is not a problem. Everyone that graduates, most people that graduate communicate with us, and this is how we track our success and help other people in the future. So this is really important. How does the matching work? Again, we do not guarantee a job. I can't emphasize that enough, right? Just because you're going through these 6 weeks, it doesn't follow from that you're going to be guaranteed a job. No one can guarantee you a job because we cannot control what an employer does. We cannot control what you do, right? So you may not show up to an interview, or you may go to an interview and say things that's beyond what we covered in the class. So no one can guarantee a job. However, the likelihood that you will find employment, you will connect with employers, is very strong. What I will guarantee is that when you send your resume out, if you follow these principles, you will get callbacks from employers. Now, the type of employers that you'll get callbacks from are employers that are in our portal, employers that use their own portal, and then confirm jobs via an aggregator. This third one is the largest bulk of employers we're going to be working with. Largest bulk because we're going to find thousands of jobs via an aggregator. Now, what is an aggregator? An aggregator is this like a crawler on the net that some companies have, and it crawls throughout the net, throughout the web, and it accumulates jobs that are posted on company websites, on other websites, and it accumulates it all in one central location. And you can search for jobs through that aggregator. And we're going to introduce you to an aggregator that we have on our site. You can click on it and you can search for jobs there. And we have, for this class, programmed it with Indeed.com so that you could produce the results that for your area would yield the number of jobs you need to find employment. So I'll go through that a little bit later on. Okay, so those are the instructions, right? Those are the rules and exercises. You can make up classes. If you miss a class, you can make them up by going to anycouncil.org and uploading your resume and receiving emails. Same thing, anycouncil.org, and you can add us to your address book. In fact, please be sure to do that so that you don't miss any emails from us. Especially after you graduate, you may get emails regarding employers, and we want to make sure it doesn't go to your bulk email. So let's get started. So until now, we were just covering some basics. Now we're going to get started with today's session. So let's start with this question. Why are you here? You have an objective, right? What is that objective? I'm going to post a poll right now, and I'd like you to participate in this poll. So the poll is called, What is your objective? I'm going to launch it right now, and I'd like you to participate in this poll. So go ahead and tell us, what is your objective? Is it to find a career, to get a job, any job, to gain knowledge of how to find employment, to find contractual work, none of the above? Go ahead. So I'm going to give everybody just a few moments to fill out this poll. Very good. So 58% find a career, 32% to get a job, any job, 79% to gain knowledge of how to find employment, and 37% to find contractual work. So I'm glad that none of you chose none of the above, right? So that's good, because then we would have to ask you, then if it's not one of the four above, then what is it? Well, I'll have to tell you that actually the correct answer was none of the above. And I'll tell you what the correct answer is. The correct answer is not that you're here to look for a career or a job. And I'll tell you why you're not here to look for a career or a job. Because a career and a job can end, right? I hope that you're on this call because you never want to be on this call again. I hope you're on this call because you are devising a system, a process, a program. You are developing skills that will lead you to never having to be in this situation again, having to look for employment again. And those of you that set to gain knowledge to find employment, you're closer to the objective that you should be looking for. But your actual objective is this: to become the sought after. And you will become the sought after. So it's one of the things that by the time you get to your 6th session, you will become the sought after. And what that means is that there is, right now, this moment, as you and I are talking, an employer somewhere looking for your skills. And the key to connecting with that employer is communication, right? So you will learn how to communicate your skills so clearly that employers in your area will find you. Think about this right now. You're sitting in some room, and not today because today's Saturday, but pretend for a moment on Monday. You're going to be sitting in the same room, and there's an employer somewhere in your city looking for precisely the kind of skills you have. But the problem is they don't know where you are, and you don't know where they are. And if they don't find you, they're going to remain unproductive, or at least they're not going to be as productive as they can be without your skills there at their business. So why are they unable to find you? Well, it's because the content of your resume is either being sent to them in a way that hides the exact type of skills they're looking for, right? So they really have to read your resume and decipher the information, have to really read between the lines to determine whether you have the skills they want or not. And most employers don't take the time to do that. Or you just haven't sent them your resume, right? So, but here's the thing. If your skill is, let's say, let's say if your skills is customer service management, you can find every employer who's posted a job for customer service management in your area through an aggregator, right? You can find every employer, so it can't be that you haven't sent that employer your resume unless the employer hasn't posted a job, in which case you should be able to find that employer through networking. Because that employer is not going to sit still in his office or her office and not look for the skill. They're going to go out there, they're going to network in your community, or they're going to post a job. So the reason you haven't sent them your resume is probably either because you're not searching in the right areas, or when you did send them your resume, the content was or had hidden the skills they're looking for. Right? So it boils down to communication. You're communicating your message in a way that does not quickly convey your information, the information that employer wants, that employer needs to see to hire you. Now, answer this question for me. If there was an employer out there that needed your skills, and they knew they can have you, and if they had you, they would be productive. They would make more money. Would they want to at least interview you? The answer is yes. If there was an employer that knew you existed and you have the skills they want, they would at least want to meet with you. So if they're not meeting with you, why is that? Again, I'm asking these questions in different ways so that you can arrive at the conclusion that it's all about communication. It's not about the job market. It's not that you don't have the skills. It's not that you your age or all these other reasons that I hear people recite about why they're not employed. It has to do with communication. And if you don't believe me at this point, it's okay. It's only natural for you to say, well, no, it's because of this other thing that I'm not employed. I've been in this business long enough to know that in today's job market, it boils down to mainly communication. So we know the two-step process no longer works. And the two-step process is to prepare a resume and send it out. Now, I want to ask you this question in a poll. How many of you have done that? How many of you, okay, so let me close the previous poll. I'm going to post a poll that first asks, how long have you been looking for employment? So tell me if you've been looking for employment 1 to 4 weeks, 1 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, 12 to 24 months, and longer than 24 months. I'm going to give you a few moments to complete this vote. Okay, so you can see from the vote that only 15% have been looking for employment 1 to 4 weeks. Everyone else has been looking for employment, actually 25% also from 1 to 6 months, but everyone else has been looking for employment longer than 6 months, right? So now what I want you to do is, so more than, let's say, let's see here, 60, just about 40, 50, 60% have been looking for employment longer than 6 months. So I'm going to close that poll. Now what I'm going to do is ask you, how many resumes have you been sending to employers you care to work for? Okay, so what you're going to do is, here we go, I just launched the poll. So have you sent during this period 1 to 10 resumes, 10 to 50 resumes, 50 to 100 resumes, 100 to 500 resumes, or 500 plus resumes? So tell me how many resumes you've been sending out on an average to these employers. I'm going to give you a few moments to complete this poll. Okay, so for those of you that have been sending 1 to 10 resumes, that's 33%. We need to up the number of resumes you're sending out, right? Not too much higher than that number, but we need to up it more than 1 to 10 resumes. For those of you that are 10 to 50 resumes, 37% of you said 10 to 50 resumes. You are about the range where you need to be to receive the number of interviews you need to get back to work, right? So 16% of you said 50 to 100 resumes, and 16% 100 to 500 resumes. I'm happy to see there wasn't anyone that sent more than 500 resumes. So about 32% of you have been sending more than, between 50 to 500 resumes. So if you're sending 50 to 500 resumes and you're not receiving a response, then we know there's something about the resume that's not working, right? You can see from this that most people have completed the two-step process. They've prepared a resume and they've sent it out. Now, the final poll I want to do is to arrive at this conclusion here. How many interviews have those resumes yielded from employers you care to work for? So I'm going to give you this poll now that's going to ask, how many interviews did you get? But I'm not asking how many interviews with employers you don't want to work for. I'm asking specifically, how many interviews did these resumes yield with employers you want to work for? Because you know how sometimes you send out a resume and an insurance agency calls you, or a company you don't want to work for, or you don't know anything about responds back to you. Sometimes you get solicited, right, as a job seeker with jobs you don't necessarily want. I don't want you to count those interviews because you didn't pursue those interviews. I want you to see your resume has a specific job, and its job is to produce interviews for you with employers you are pursuing. So if I send my resume to XYZ company, my resume has a job to do. What is its job? Its job is to produce an interview with XYZ company, right? That's the kind of employers I am asking you to report here on this poll. Okay, so I'm going to launch it and tell me if you got 1 to 3 interviews from employers you want to work with, 3 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, or 15 plus. Okay, so this poll is representative of all the classes that we teach, right? So you have more people that have been looking for employment for longer than 6 months. You have people who are sending out resumes, 50 to 100 resumes. And you can see from this poll, 67% are getting 1 to 3 responses. Now, I bet you if I put 0 there, you would get some people choosing that. We just don't have it as an option here in the poll. 3 to 5, 26%. And some of you have been getting 5 to 10, but no one has been getting more than 10. You can see that's 0%, right? No one more than 15. So the most we've been getting is 5 to 10. So what does that tell you? I did these series of polls for a reason. What does that tell you? It tells you that the two-step process doesn't work. Preparing a resume and sending it out does not work. Because we know that even all these interviews, 63% have received 1 to 3 interviews, but they've been sending out resumes, and it hasn't yielded a job either. Now, even those of you that have received 5 to 10 interviews, you're still on this call. So it hasn't yielded a position. So why is that, right? So we know the two-step process doesn't work. What we know works through our track record is the process we're going to share with you. Now, would you agree that if you model the success of people who've produced success, if you model the behaviors of those who've been successful, you're apt to duplicate a pattern that will lead you to producing similar results? Yeah, so if you want to become a championship swimmer, you would model the behaviors of someone like Michael Phelps, right? The Olympic gold medalist. Or if you want to be great at your financials, you would model the behaviors of someone who's been successful in managing their financials. If someone in your family who has a terrible financial background gives you tips on how to save or how to be successful financially, chances are that's a person you don't want to model, right? So this is something we all understand. The 5-step program that we'll cover with you in this class is a program that we know works. So the 2-step process no longer works, but this process does. So we call this the roadmap, and it consists of 5 steps. Step number 1 is ignite your inner fire. That's what we'll cover today. So motivation is an important component to success. Now, whenever I talk about this, I hear people who may be thinking, well, I'm already motivated. Move on to the next point. But the thing is that when you're looking for employment, we are talking about a different type of motivation. You see, when we face a challenge, usually we're motivated enough to overcome that challenge and then move past it. But when you're looking for employment, these challenges one faces is very different. It touches a level of one's passion, one's motivation differently than other types of challenges. Let me give you some examples. You go to a job interview and you nail the interview. In fact, when you leave, you think you got the job. You know this because the hiring manager told you. He said, hey, you did such a great job, Fred. We're going to hire you. But we have to talk to some other applicants, and we'll get back to you. So you leave the interview thinking you've got the job. In fact, you celebrate with your spouse, and a week later, you get a letter of rejection. You didn't get the job. You see, that impacts someone's psyche, one's level of motivation very differently than any other challenge you encounter normally when you are employed. Or you send hundreds of resumes and you don't get a single response after knowing you are the best fit for these jobs. Again, step number 1 is important for that reason, in that those who succeed press forward despite the challenges they face, and there is a level of motivation that is very different, that one develops through a skill. And the skill that we're talking about here is discussed at stage 1, and we'll talk about that today. Number 2 is identify your career path. Career path is the foundation behind your resume. You can't have a successful resume unless you complete step 2. And in fact, for those of you who skip step 2 and graduate nonetheless and send us a resume, we can't even look at your resume unless you complete step 2, because the framework that is contained within your resume is really dependent upon how successful you are at building your career path. Now, I talk about framework, and I want to show you something regarding what I mean by framework. So let me just switch PowerPoints here. I want to show you this thing about framework. So framing an argument. We're not going to talk about arguments today because when you go to an interview, you're really making an argument. You know how some people say, when you go to an interview, sell yourself? So there's nothing there you're selling. You're not a salesperson. You know, it almost reminds me when someone says, go to an interview and sell yourself. It's almost like as if you're trying to sell furniture or you're trying to sell some. There's nothing to sell. You're there to present an argument, one that helps the receiver arrive at a conclusion, which is to hire you. In order for them to arrive at that conclusion, you have to have a solid argument, and a resume is your argument. So we're not going to talk about arguments now. We will in next week when we talk about step 2, career path. But what I want to do is right now is I want to show you how something can be framed. The media does this all the time. Before the media chooses a story, let's say they want to do a story on the effects of, oops, let me go back here, the effects of a storm on a teen. You see this right here? Storm on a teen. They want to do a story about that. Let's say there was a storm and a teen was involved. They want to do a story about that. So they can frame it one of 3 ways. The first one, the headline could read, "Youth at home disobey warning. Knocked out in storm-related accident." In frame 1, what is your conclusion? Oh my God, what is this world coming to? You know, our youth, they're disobeying warnings all over the place. You see how the way this was framed, it shaped a certain conclusion for the audience, right? Now look at frame 2. Same thing as storm and a teen. Girl at home injured during storm. Home had been cited for building code violations. Now when you listen to the same occurrence in frame 2, you think, those construction people, those people, if they would have watched for the code and the violation, this poor girl would have never been violated, would have never been injured. You know, what is this world coming to? These businesses, they don't know how to construct their policies and their codes, etc. So the conclusion you arrive at as an audience is totally different. Now look at the third frame. Headline, "Teen hurt in freak storm. I was terrified." When you look at frame 3, it's almost like a global warming argument. You know, you're thinking, boy, the global warming is really affecting the weather conditions, and look at what it's doing to people. So you have these 3 different frames that we created from the same condition. Now your resume is no different. When you construct your resume, you frame it in a way where your audience can't help but to arrive at one conclusion. And the conclusion is, I must hire this person in front of me. So step number 2 helps us frame our resume. Number 3 is prepare for the phone interview. Now let me ask you a question. Do you prepare for the phone interview after you send your resume or before you send your resume? You can kind of chime that one for me through the chat box. Just kind of type your answer in the chat box. Do you prepare for the phone interview before the resume is sent out or after the resume is sent out? Okay, so I'm getting some people saying after. Let me see if I can put these in order here. Okay, I'm getting your responses. Very good. So most people are saying after. Some are saying, I'm seeing a few that are saying before, but most are saying after. Let's see, I'm trying to read these responses. Some say really it depends. Some say always be prepared. Okay, very good. So the right answer is before. right? Not after. And I'll tell you why. When you send your resume out, we are assuming that a callback will result. We're not assuming that a callback will not result. We're assuming a callback will result. Because if we're already assuming a callback will not result, then why are we even sending a resume? If we're assuming a callback will result, then we must be ready for the phone interview because the callback could result at any time. Let's say I send my resume now. I click send. My resume goes. What if I receive the callback in just a few moments from when I submit my resume? Then I don't have time to prepare. I need to be prepared for the phone interview before the call comes in, simply because I get only one chance at turning that phone interview into an interview. I get only one chance, right? So I want to be prepared. If I get 3 callbacks, I want 3 interviews. Don't you? I'm sure you do, right? So you want to maximize your results, right? So that's why you see number 3 before 4. Now the truth is most people look at this roadmap and they think, wait a moment, I'm not going to get to build a resume until I go through 3 other steps. Look, I got to get back to work. I don't have time to go through step 1, 2, and 3. So for those of you who believe that, for those of you that believe that I don't have time, I need to get to the resume, I'll say this. You have a choice. You can either wait and go through the 3 steps and produce a resume that produces callbacks, or you can do the waiting after you send your resume when you don't get callbacks. So you could skip step 1, 2, and 3 and get right to 4, build your resume, send it out because you don't have time, and you'll wait for a response. Or you can take your time, wait now, take your time, do it right, do step 1, 2, and 3, and then when you build your resume, you'll build it correctly, and when you send it out, you'll produce callbacks. Then you wouldn't have to wait for callbacks. You'll get them, right? Either way, you'll have to wait. That's the bad news. The bad news is you either have to wait before you build your resume or you have to wait afterwards. The thing, though, is that the wait afterwards, if you don't do step 1, 2, and 3, you jump to 4, build your resume and send it out, the wait is far more frustrating and takes much longer, right? So you may wait for a couple of years and get only a few calls, right? And that is where the frustration comes. But if you do step 1, 2, and 3, then build your resume, there is very little frustrations because you send your resume out, you get callbacks, you get interviews, you'll be happy. So I want to encourage all of you to be patient, take your time. If you want to continue sending your existing resume, do so. Send your resume, the one you have. Don't rush into creating a new resume right now. Pretend for a moment that you have the resume you have now, you haven't gone through this course, keep sending it out, but do step 1, 2, and 3 diligently. Wait 3 to 4 weeks until we get to the resume session before you even work on your resume. I say this because during step 1, 2, or 3, you're going to hear things that gives you the aha moment. You're like, aha, that's what I should do, or this is what I need to change. And you invest time prematurely changing your resume, time you should be investing on step 1, 2, and 3, not on your resume. Okay, so can we all agree on that? Agree that you're not going to work on your resume. Instead, you're going to invest time on step 1, 2, and 3. Okay? All right, so let's continue on to step number 4, building your resume. We're going to cover that session, I think, in 3 or 4 weeks. And then we're going to manage the apply and the interview. What that means is that you are going to apply in a laser-focused fashion. You're not going to mass apply any longer. If you have been up to this point, you're going to stop mass applying. It is not a numbers game. It's not as if you send more resumes, you're going to get more callbacks. In fact, it's the opposite. The more resumes you send out in a small area, like let's say Orange County or San Diego. You may think those are big areas, but when it comes to the employment market, they're pretty small. The more resumes you send out, the more chances that you'll get scanned out. You see, talent management softwares, they scan out a resume that is not viewed as a match. And sometimes you can be scanned out. That means eliminated from the process for 12 months, 6 months, 12 months, because employers think, they believe you're not going to acquire any new skills during that period, so they don't want you to keep sending them a resume. So they have these systems set up that when a resume hits the scanner, it hits the talent management software that is totally out of the parameter that they have designated for it, it's going to get scanned out. It's going to go kind of like into the bulk mail. And then anytime that resume hits the scanner again, it's going to go in the bulk mail from that point on for a period of time. Of course, every talent management software is programmed differently, is set up differently. They have different systems, etc. But you don't want to get scanned out of a whole bunch of jobs in a small area, because then you're eliminating yourself from the job market, essentially. You want to apply in a laser-focused fashion. So that's what manage the apply means. We're going to show you how to do that. And then manage the interview. Manage the interview, right? So manage the interview is what you say and do at the interview process. That's a really important step that we're going to talk about. And then negotiate the salary and retaining the position, maintaining the position. We're not going to go over those areas, how to negotiate a salary, how to retain your position. Those are things that you're going to have to figure out. But we're going to go over from step 1, which is today, all the way to how to find a position. All right, everybody, it's break time. It's 11 o'clock. Good job, everyone, hanging in there. I'm going to see you here at 11:10. We start right on time, so I'll see you here momentarily. Okay, welcome back. So before the break, we talked about the 5 steps to success, and I'm going to take us back to those, we call that the roadmap. I'm going to take us back to that page. All right, let me go back this way here. There we go. Okay, so this is the roadmap, and today we're going to cover step 1. At the conclusion, you're going to receive guide number 1, which will then help you along with the exercises that accompany that step. Okay, so let's go to step number 1, ignite your inner fire. Now imagine if there was a gauge, and it could gauge your level of motivation. And 0 was when you had the least amount of motivation, and 20 is when you had the most amount of motivation, right? What controls that gauge? Think about it. And where is the lever usually for most people? Well, for most people, it's in the middle throughout the day, right, if you really think about it. And sometimes that level can drop down to 0. Sometimes it can go up to 20. Now, what moves that level? If you think about it, for most people, it's outside circumstances, right? So if I say to you, if you were walking down the street and someone stopped you and said, "Hi, can I talk to you?" You said, "Yeah, can I help you?" You said, "Yeah, yeah, I'm from Procter & Gamble, and we've been following you," which is actually a pretty creepy idea, but just for the purpose of this example, imagine that was actually happening. And the hiring manager from Procter & Gamble says, "We've been following you, and we've been looking at your resume, and we've concluded that we want to hire you. And the salary we're going to offer you is $250,000 a year, and we're sorry, we're going to have to start you with that, but it's going to increase every year, and you get full benefits package, you get insurance." And at first you were skeptical. Who's this guy who stopped me on the street telling me all this stuff? But when you check it out, you see this is actually true, that Procter & Gamble they've had their eyes on you and for a long time now, and they've decided they're going to bring you on as one of their executives, and you're going to be on a 10-year contract. So for the next 10 years, you don't have to worry about a job, $250,000 a year. What would happen to this lever and your level of motivation? it would jump up to 20, right? And then if something bad happened in your life, it's possible that lever could go down to 0. So exterior circumstances control what happens to that lever. Imagine for a moment if it was possible for the lever to get stuck at 20. And regardless of what happened to you outside of your life, regardless of the circumstances, it always was at 20. So you woke up highly motivated and you went to sleep feeling the same way, looking forward to the next day. And it never changed. So you went through a challenge in your life. The motivation level did not change no matter how many challenges you were to face. How would that change your life? If that was possible, for the lever to get stuck at 20 and for you to be motivated every day regardless, how would that change your life? Well, if you think about it, it would change your life dramatically, because you would find yourself as being happy and excited and exhilarated and motivated and passionate. All of the positive emotions that we know as good, you will have every day, regardless of the kind of challenges you go through. So I'm going to argue with you that by the end of today's session, you're going to have the tools you need through exercise to break that lever at 20. Now, I don't expect you to believe me right now. Just hang in with me, and we're going to give you, through this seminar, the tools you need to get there. And I'm not going to just make a claim, a baseless claim, through words. In fact, throughout today's session, I'm going to have you experience what it would be like if that lever was stuck at 20, if you had these content, if you had the information we share with you implemented. So just hang in with me, and I'll tell you what I mean by all of this. So we're going to now move on to what that content is, right? What is it that would break that lever at 20? We know today that there are 3 traits that accomplish that. Now, what I'm about to share with you is based on findings by a pioneer in the field of self-improvement by the name of Dr. Maxwell Maltz. Dr. Maltz found that well, before I get to Maltz, let me tell you what's on the PowerPoint first so that I don't confuse you all. We all possess 3 ingredients. When these ingredients are activated, success is inevitable. Motivation, I should really say, maybe success is not inevitable, but motivation is inevitable when you activate those 3 ingredients. And this statement is assuming that if you're motivated, then chances are you're going to succeed as well. But I would suggest that you replace success with motivation, because you could arguably be motivated but not succeed, right? You could. However, I would argue that if you institute these 3 ingredients in your life, you would activate you would create a chemistry within you that would lead to unlimited motivation. You would be motivated just because you are existing. You would be happy and not know why. Now, the concepts that we'll share with you is based on findings by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. He wrote a book in the mid-40s or 50s called Psycho-Cybernetics. It's still a bestseller. It's been translated in 30 different languages. It is one of the most powerful books I have ever read. And when you look at the guide that you'll receive, when you look at the guide number 1, which is this guide right here, it has a picture of the book, and you can acquire it through Amazon for like $5. It's pretty inexpensive. But I can tell you that, I've read a lot of books, but this is the most powerful I have ever read. And if you listen to motivational seminars of any kind, anyone of any significance in the field of self-empowerment, self-improvement, from Tony Robbins to Tom Hopkins to Zig Ziglar, they all talk about Dr. Maxwell Maltz as someone who reshaped their thinking, who changed their lives. And I can tell you myself that it is a book that will change your life. Dr. Maltz found that as humans, we are goal-seeking creatures. In his book, he writes, science has provided us with convincing proof that the human mind, muscular system, and nervous system form a highly complex goal-seeking mechanism. Now, we're going to get to those three traits I told you about, right? So he is moving us towards those three traits. If you think about it, all creatures on the planet have this success mechanism that helps them succeed in being on this planet. Think about a bird. A bird knows exactly where a warm climate is. It knows the exact location of a cold climate, and it can travel the distance between a cold climate to a warm one, even through open seas. It doesn't need to take, the bird doesn't need to take lessons in navigation. It doesn't need to look for the latest weather reports. It is instinctively programmed. It is programmed to succeed. Now, we differ from animals in that our goals, for the bird, goal is survival, right? But our goals are different. Of course, survival is important, but we have the ability to choose certain goals. We choose our goals. And because of that, we have a mechanism, Dr. Maltz refers to it as the success mechanism, that is far more complex in nature than that of other creatures. It can help us solve problems and invent things. But most importantly, it achieves goals for us through a very intricate adjustive mechanism. Now, if you think about it, when a baseball player chooses to catch a fly ball, he or she uses this mechanism, this adjustive mechanism, right? Think about it. I'm a baseball player, and I've been playing all of my life. I'm a great baseball player. I catch the ball, a fly ball, every time, right? So now there's a fly ball. When I decide to run after it, I have to take many factors into account, which all occur automatically. I have to take into account the speed of the ball, its curvature, its rate of decrease in velocity. And when I run towards the ball, I have to take into account my speed, my direction, my rate of increase or decrease in velocity so that I can adjust it to the speed of the ball and so that I can be at that exact location where the ball's going to be to meet it at that exact instant. Now, do I need a notepad and a pen to determine all of these things? Do I have to make these calculations on paper beforehand like a math major or like a scientist? No, it all occurs automatically. All I do is decide on the goal, and then as soon as I take off, everything else occurs automatically. You see this adjustive mechanism? This is what we're talking about. When you set a goal and you pursue it, everything usually occurs through this adjustive mechanism unless you deactivate this mechanism. When you deactivate it, then this adjustive mechanism becomes what Dr. Maltz refers to as restrained. And our goal-seeking mechanism is far more powerful and relies on an adjustive method to achieve any goal. Now, to activate this mechanism, there are three traits that you must consciously activate. When you activate it, one of the consequences is motivation. Now, if you look at anyone who's achieved success of any kind, when you look at people like Michael Jordan or Warren Buffett, they all have activated these three traits. One of the distinguishing factors between people who succeed and people who do not is that people who succeed early on activate these traits, and people who do not deactivate them. Now think about this. Today we live in remarkable times. We have achieved more in the past 100 years than we have in the entire history of mankind. This is an era that we've looked forward to and dreamed of for thousands of years. This is an era where a college dropout can become a billionaire within just a couple of years. Facebook and Instagram are examples of that phenomenon. You look at someone, a man who was out of a job, who became a success story, the founder of Netflix, right? This is the kind of era that we live in. But despite that, 90% of the people you meet will never succeed. This is based on research by the U.S. Government that shows over 90% of all people will need the U.S. government to support them for the basic necessities such as food and shelter by the time they retire. Now think about 100 people at age 25. These individuals at age 25 all believed by the time they retire, they're going to be successful. At that age, there's a certain passion in their eyes, and life seems like an adventure to them. But by the time they reach the age of 65, 5 will be still working, 1 will be rich, 89 will be broke. So think about that. What happened to that vision? What happened to that energy, to that sparkle in their eyes? And the answer is, these 3 ingredients are never activated or are deactivated at some point through their lives. Now I'm going to go through these 3 traits with you. Then I'm going to have you experience what it would be like if these 3 traits were activated. So first, I'm going to tell you about the 3 traits. Then I'm going to have you imagine what it would be like if these 3 traits were present in your life right now. And by doing that, I want you to experience what it would be like, what your life would be like if these 3 traits were activated. So let's go through them. Ingredient number 1 is a goal. We are goal-seeking creatures. To be happy, we must have a goal that we know we are moving towards achieving. There is research that points at this evidence, that points at the following, that people who retire and stop work die within 5 to 7 years of retiring. People who retire and continue to work live longer and healthier lives. You can look this up online. Why is that? It's because people who work, continue to work, have something to achieve. Now, you can probably think about a time when you set a goal that you achieved, a goal that was important to you. How did that make you feel? You felt great. And what happens when you set a goal, but you can't achieve it, and that goal is important to you? Well, either you continue pursuing it, or if you can't achieve it and this pattern continues, let's say you keep setting goals that you don't achieve, it can have a negative effect, right? But what if you don't have goals? Well, same thing, right? It's like that person that retires but doesn't work. So a goal is essential to happiness. It's essential to our success as human beings. Ingredient number 2 is desire. Now, desire is your want for the goal. So when you set a goal, you must desire it for this success mechanism to be activated. So if you're pursuing a goal because your parents want you to pursue it, or if you're pursuing a goal because you want to make someone else happy, then it doesn't activate this mechanism. It has to be a goal that you pursue because you really, really want it. You have a passion for it. Now, the 3rd ingredient is the most important. It is the ingredient that creates the chemistry within you we call motivation. This chemistry occurs naturally. You know, if I give you an apple and an orange, you would choose which one to eat with, right? Which one to eat. And that choice is conscious. You make that choice consciously. But as soon as you eat one of those fruits, let's say the apple, and that food, that fruit hits your stomach, the chemistry that occurs within your stomach to dissolve that food is not within your control. It's not like you think about it. You can think digestion into being. You don't think about it, digestion just occurs, right? That chemistry is automatic. Well, when you set a goal that you desire and you put ingredient number 3 in place, the chemistry that occurs within your body that produces motivation is automatic as well. But without number 3, you don't get that chemistry. So you could set a goal that you desire all you want. That does not guarantee achievement. uh, the process is very much like a chemistry of matter. You know, you could have three elements. Imagine three, you know, scientists, how they have those glass, what do you call it? Um, Gosh, I'm in loss of words. You know, those three glass things, they mix into one another, right? I forget what they're called right now. It's not coming to my mind. And each one of those three glass thingies, I'll call them thingies, beakers, thank you. Those three beakers, each one of them have a certain fluid in them. Let's say one element is yellow, one element is red, and one element is green. Now, if they combine two of the elements together, the scientist may get nothing. But as soon as the scientist mixes a third one, he may get a whole new element, like let's say nitroglycerin, right? Get a new component. And what is nitroglycerin? Facial cream? What is nitroglycerin? It's an explosive, right? It's an explosive. So the first two may not get you anything, but the third one will create a whole new compound. So I'm going to tell you what the third ingredient is. Are you ready? Okay, here's the third ingredient. It is belief in your ability to achieve the goal. So you set a goal you desire, and you must believe in your ability to achieve the goal. Now, the word believe or belief is kind of throws me off when I hear it first, right? It kind of throws me off. Is it like, I believe I can achieve this goal? I believe I can do this? No, we're not talking about that statement of I believe I can do it, because I believe is almost like insinuating maybe I'll achieve it, maybe I don't. I believe I can, but I'm not sure if I can. We're not talking about that level of belief. We're talking about, I call it the no. That's actually, I should copyright that translation. The no. I made that up. Is that like ingenious? I don't know. What do you think? Actually, it's not. I know it's not. But so the no. What is the no? You ever been in a situation where you think to yourself, I know I can do this? You ever been in that situation where you say, I know I can do this? When you say, I know I can do this, something happens that's more than just you reciting two words. See, something clicks in your head that changes your physiology. It changes the chemistry within your being, within your body, that moves you towards taking a series of actions that leads to the achievement of that thing which you said, I know. So that's what we're talking about when we say belief in your ability to achieve the goal is the no. When you say, I know I will get this job, or I know I will run faster than everyone else. I know I will. See, doubt is then eliminated from the process. But when you say, I'm going to do my best, I think I can do this, so I'm going to do my best. You know that whole rhetoric about just do your best, as if just doing your best is sufficient. And I'm telling you it's not when you're looking for employment. Just doing your best is not sufficient. It is necessary that you do all those things that we know leads to employment. So every step we talk about, it's necessary that you follow those steps. And then when you do, you will know you will get the job. Now, does that mean you'll get the job every time? No, it's like I said in the beginning, jobs are not guaranteed because we can't control what other people do. But you will do all of those things that will lead to employment. You may still not get employment, but that's okay. You'll press forward until you do. So now what I want you to do is put your pens and pads down if you did have a pen and a pad. If you had a pen in your hand. I don't know if you had your notepad in your hand too. Probably not. Probably you had it on your table. But put your pens down. I want you to sit back, and I just want you to listen to what I'm about to tell you. You don't have to close your eyes. But I want you to really get rid of any distractions in the room If there's something on in your room, turn it off. If there's someone in your room, ask them to leave for a second, close the door. I want you to really pay attention to what I'm about to tell you. I want you to imagine the following. Now, my goal from imagining what I'm about to tell you is to experience what it would be like to have those three ingredients activated. Okay? So, when you're ready, I'm going to get started. I'm going to start in 5 seconds. Okay, I want you to imagine for a moment that I took my checkbook out right now and I wrote you a check for $10 million. Now, in order for you to experience what I want you to experience, you must imagine what I'm about to tell you is happening to you right now, as opposed to you looking from the outside, it happening to someone else. You must imagine it's happening to you right now. So I wrote you a check for $10 million, and I said, this check is yours. All you have to do is go to the bank and cash it in 30 days. Now, at first, you were skeptical. You thought, well, what's the catch? I said, well, there is no catch. All you have to do is complete a task every day that's fully ethical and law-abiding, but you nonetheless have to complete that task. And if you complete that task every day at 6 in the morning for 30 days, this check is yours. You can take it to the bank and cash it. And some of you were skeptical. You thought, well, I don't believe you. And I showed you what you needed to see to be convinced that this check is real. For everyone, that thing that I show you is different, right? So someone may say, well, I need to see it, that money is in the bank. Another would say, well, I need to call your boss to make sure that this is for real. I need to call your organization. So whatever it is you asked, we did. And you were convinced that this $10 million, there is no catch. This is an organization that once every 10 years, they select one person to win $10 million. And it's real, it exists, and you've been chosen. And all you have to do is do something every day at 6 in the morning. Are you with me so far? Okay. So you said, I'm convinced you're going to make me $10 million richer in 30 days. What do I do? And I said, all you have to do is wake up 6 in the morning every day and run or walk 1 mile. That's it, for 30 days. Every day at 6 in the morning, you wake up, you run or walk 1 mile. And if you do that, within 30 days, you don't come to me, you go to a friend we both trust. I'm going to give him the check. I'm going to give him everything you need. You just go to him. He gives you the check. You go to the bank. You're $10 million richer. Go. You start tomorrow. From this moment on, I want you to talk to me emotions. Type in the chat box. What are some of the emotions that you'll experience knowing that in 30 days you're going to be $10 million richer? And don't type, I'm still skeptical, because remember I said that if you were skeptical, we showed you that which you needed to see for you to no longer be skeptical. So now you know for sure you're going to be $10 million richer in 30 days. All you have to do is wake up 6 in the morning starting tomorrow and run or walk 1 mile. How do you feel as you're going to your car to go start this feat tomorrow? Go ahead. Tell me. Some of you are saying motivated, anticipation, nervous, anxiety, joy, excitement, freedom, overwhelmed, excited. So most determined, very good. So exactly, these are all the emotions you would experience. Now, are these the kind of emotions that will last, or are they the kind of emotions that are there just because something motivated you, you know, like a motivational class? You know how sometimes you go to a motivational class and you are motivated for a period of time, a brief period, but then, you know, you get back to your daily lives, your daily agendas. A couple of weeks later, you forget what was shared with you at the class, and the motivation dies out. Is this the kind of motivation we're talking about? Does this level of motivation die out, or does it get stronger? Well, let's observe the facts. Let's think about this. 20 days later, every day you woke up at 6 in the morning and ran 1 mile. In 10 more days, you're going to be $10 million richer. Are you more or less motivated 20 days later? Think about that. 20 days later, every day you woke up 6 in the morning, ran or walked 1 mile. In 10 days, you're going to be $10 million richer. As time goes on and you get closer to the goal, are you more or less motivated? More motivated, right? Yeah, as you get closer to the goal, you become even more motivated. Can you see this is different? Can you see when you have a goal that you desire and you have the belief in your ability that you can achieve it, that this is different level of motivation than one you've ever experienced before? Now, what is it that created this motivation, this excitement, this exhilaration? Think about this. Every day you wake up and you walk a mile. What are you feeling? You're happy. You're excited. Your view towards life has changed. You're a more effective communicator. You say hi to people. You're joyous. What did this to you? You are a changed person. What did this to you? Well, someone told me at one of the seminars that it's the money. In fact, one of you just typed that. It's the money, right? $10 million can make a big difference in someone's life. What if I told you it's not the money? It has nothing to do with the money. Think about this for a moment. To show you that it has nothing to do with the money, imagine 30 days later, you walk into some room that they ask you to walk into to get the check. You walk into the room and suddenly the room looks different. There is a table in the center. There are these people around it, and there's these camera crew and magazine people there. And as soon as you walk in, they're like, "There you are, Fred. Everyone give him a big round of applause." And everybody gives you a big round of applause as you're walking in. You're like, "Hey, what's going on? Fred, come on in. Boy, we're proud of you. You did such a great job in this experiment. Take a seat." And there's this guy with a bow tie, and he's doing all the talking. And he's like, "Take pictures. Come on." And everyone's taking pictures. And he's like, "Fred, we're so proud of you. This experiment that you engaged in, you were the top subject. We are so proud of you. In fact, we normally don't even give plaques to any of our subjects, but we made one for you because you, Fred, you were the best." And you're like, wait a moment. Where's the money? You're like, he's like, "No, there is no money, Fred. This was an experiment. Of course, we couldn't tell you. You're going to get, you wouldn't have participated as greatly as you did if we did, but hey, guess what? You're going to be on the front cover of the Science Journal." So let's not talk about what you're going to do with the plaque. Let's talk about whether the money really existed. There was no money, right? There was no money. This was a science experiment. Let's imagine for a second. Were you still powerful for 30 days preceding the day where you went to pick up the money? So 30 days prior, were you still powerful? The answer is yes. Was there any money? No, there was no money. There was an imagined thought of the money. So you thought there was some money, and that was sufficient. As long as there was an idea of the money, that was sufficient to activate the emotions. Do you see the money had nothing to do with it? So you have a goal that you envision. You have the desire for that goal, just like you have a desire for $10 million, and then the belief. Now, what was the belief in this exercise? The belief was that I can walk or run 1 mile. What if I changed the condition? What if I said, it's not 1 mile, it's 100 miles? If in 30 days you wake up every day and run and walk 100 miles, you'll get the money. You would say, forget about it, I can't do it. And you wouldn't get excited. Right? But as long as the goal is achievable in your mind, as long as you don't sabotage the belief, as long as you don't say, well, I can't do it, as long as you say, I can do this, right? It just happens in this experiment, in this exercise, I chose a goal I was certain you can achieve, right? And finding employment is no different, right? If you create these things in your mind, these ideas that makes finding employment unlikely or more difficult than it really is, then it deactivates this emotion that you must have at an interview. So in our book, right, in our guide, this is the guide here, there are a series of exercises. So I'm not going to go through the exercises now because you can go through the book and do the exercises yourself. So the exercises are here, right? I think this one is on, let's see, page 40, 41, right? And you go through, and as you read it, you have these stories, right? But then you have the exercises. And what you're going to do is complete these exercises, and next week we're going to cover them. We're going to go over them, okay? So that's our plan. Every week what we do is just as we did this week. We cover a step, and then we offer you the exercises that are in the guide. Now, as soon as this call is over, I'm looking for Abraham Lincoln here because there's a little story about him in here. Okay, I'm going to stop going through pages. After this call is over, you're going to receive an email. In that email, there will be a link to the guide. And you're going to click on that link, read the guide, and do the exercises. And between now and next week, all we're going to do is focus on these exercises for Guide 1. We're not going to work on, here, let me pull up the roadmap. Give me just one moment here to pull this up. Okay, so we're not going to do 2, 3, 4, or 5 this week. We're only going to focus on step number 1. And the guide for step number 1, its link will be emailed to you after this call has completed. And so you go through the guide, you go through the exercises, and then we meet next week. And then for the first 30 minutes or so next week, we're going to cover, review the exercises, see if anybody has questions, and then we're going to start with step 2. Now for step 2 next week, there's a video that you're all going to get, that you'll be able to watch to go through those exercises, but we'll cover that next week. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to answer questions. If you have any questions about what we discussed today, feel free to ask now, and I'll be happy to answer them. So you simply type your questions in the chat box, and I will be happy to answer them for you. So if you are hearing a pause, I'm waiting for questions to be typed so that I can then answer them for you. So the first question is, will we be able to rewatch this webinar? And the answer is yes. If I can get the video for this sorted out, because I did record this session, I will then send you a link to that video as well, considering there is no issues with uploading the video into YouTube. The answer is yes. Also, you will get a link for an aggregator on our system. What I'd like you to do is go onto that aggregator and search for jobs. Let me answer the questions, and I'll then give you instructions about how to do that. All right, next question. Do we send you the answers or just complete them to discuss next week? Yeah, just go ahead and complete the exercises. You don't need to send them to me. When you all graduate, I've been in this business long enough to know who's completed the exercises and who hasn't. And I'm not like the teacher, like the professor who says, Hey, I know who studies and who doesn't. And you know the professor doesn't know who's studied and who doesn't. But at the end, he does because of how you get your grades, right? So if your grade is a D, then he was right. He knew that you who studied and who didn't. Maybe during a class he didn't, but at the conclusion, your grade is your job, the job that you get, and then becoming the sought after. If I don't hear from you ever again, other than sometime you call me to just have a chat and tell me about what a great job you've received. If I don't hear from you other than that, then I know you've did the exercises and everything worked for you. But on the other hand, if I get calls from you on a regular basis, and I'm always happy to have you in our sessions where we review resumes, when I'm looking at your resume, I know if you're following the principles or not. And if you're following the principles, it's clear, we'll both know. By the conclusion of the 6th session, you'll know when a resume is not done correctly and when it's done correctly. And what does correctly mean? Correctly means a resume that's done correctly produces callbacks. A resume that's not done correctly, it doesn't produce callbacks. So I know you did the exercises if you're doing the resume correctly. So, and it all starts with step 1. So that was a long answer, Deanne, but just the short answer is no, you don't have to send me your completed responses to the exercises. So someone is asking if they can't attend, James is asking if he can't attend a session, how will he complete next week's class? Well, next week's class you can complete by going through the manual that will be sent to you, the guide, and a video of the guide. You can go through it. And you can always make up sessions in the future. Right now we're only running one session, but we will run multiple sessions in the very near future. Like I said, we're just picking up the classes again after 1 year of being in hibernation. And we had multiple classes running at the same time when we were doing these classes. So we will have, and then you can make them up, right? We can have three different classes running. So class 11, 12, 13 could be running at the same time. And if you miss session 1 in one of them, you could join session 1 in another. And they're all online classes, so you can just hop in and join those classes. Let's see, Robin asks, I think it's really important that the group networks together and helps each other. I would like to suggest we somehow initiate that. But yeah, absolutely. You will all have access to each other if you give permission. So if you give permission and say, at the conclusion, we're going to do this on session 6. If you say, I want to be in contact with everybody else, then we would send you everyone else's information. And on LinkedIn, we're going to have a way to all link in together. We'll go over that in session 6. Okay, so if there's any other questions, I'll give you some time to type those. But meanwhile, what I want to do is talk to you about 2 things. 1 is the aggregator, and 2 is the importance of volunteering. An aggregator is a system that accumulates jobs into one central location, and I'm going to send you a link at the conclusion of this presentation, and what I want you to do is search for jobs in your area, and the goal is to read job descriptions. Read as many job descriptions as you can for the areas that you seek employment. Now, don't go to just any aggregator. Go to the link that I sent you and read as many job descriptions as possible. This is really important for next week so that you get an idea what jobs in your area are looking for when it comes to the profession you're looking for. So if companies are looking for customer service managers or are looking for, let's say, operations managers, you want to know what employers in your area are looking for in terms of operations management or customer service management, because companies looking for customer service management in, let's say, Orlando, look for different things than customer service managers in, let's say, Los Angeles. Can anyone tell me why that is? Well, I'll tell you, it's because in Orlando you have a more transient area, more tourists. Maybe they have more call centers there, or maybe because of the cost of labor, they have a different system versus in Los Angeles. Maybe they're looking for more retail customer service because there are more stores than there are in a place like, let's say, Orlando. There's lots of different reasons why customer service or a particular position in one area would be different than in another area. So you want to read a lot of job descriptions to look for what exactly employers in your area are looking for. So look for that link, the aggregator, that's going to come along with the video. Of course, if we have problems with the video, you won't get a link for the video, and the link to the guide. The other thing I wanted to share with you was information about volunteering. There was a time volunteering was not really necessary. It was exactly what it conveyed. Volunteering. You volunteered for something. Today, volunteering is necessary to finding employment. This is because a gap on a resume and its length is viewed as something not positive, right? So the longer the gap, let's say you lose your job today, the clock is ticking. The longer the gap between the time you lose your job and the time you get another one, the more unappealing your situation becomes. When you volunteer for an organization, you get rid of that gap. So there's a couple of things to keep in mind about volunteering. Number one, it's necessary. Number two, when you volunteer, there's a specific way you communicate volunteerism on your resume. And we're going to talk about that in session 4. Just because you volunteered doesn't mean you enhance the stock of your resume. How you communicate your volunteering does enhance the stock of your resume. So the way in which you do it does. So volunteering is necessary. Communicating how you volunteered is important. And then finally, when you volunteer, it's important that it's directly in line with the professions you want to seek. So just because you're volunteering doesn't mean you increase the stock of your resume. It's important where you volunteer and what you volunteer for. Now, we have a volunteering program at NEC, and you're all invited to go and take a look at that. The way the volunteering works, if you look in apply for a volunteer position, is you have all of these different positions. And in these positions, you have job descriptions that you can read. And when you become a volunteer in any of those areas, you can communicate your title on your resume, and we become your reference. So if an employer calls us, we'll let them know that you are working on this project with us as this title, right? And if they choose to ask whether this is a volunteer or non-volunteer, we'll tell them, but we won't volunteer that information, right? So we're not going to say, well, so-and-so is a volunteer with us, because that message is irrelevant to the conversation. What's relevant is what position you have and how you're doing in that position. So that's what we're going to tell them, what we're going to talk to them about. So this increases the stock in your resume. And it also is one of those essential elements to the success, right? Doing something, because in the process of volunteering, you're going to do a lot of good for the causes that we pursue. Now, to learn more about our causes, I would suggest you go to our homepage and read about it, right? So we work with homeless children, parents of homeless children who have lost their homes due to unemployment, as well as veterans. So that's it. We're done with the session. What I'd like to do at this point is conclude this presentation, and within about an hour or so, you should receive your links. If by any reason you don't receive your links, then I'm your career coach. Feel free to email me, and I will forward them directly to you. Okay? If there's no other questions, I'm going to end this presentation in a few moments. I'm going to hang on just in case there's any other questions. But otherwise, look for your email to complete your exercises, and we'll see you next Saturday at 10 a.m. Eric has a question. Go ahead, Eric. Feel free to ask. Thank you, Robin. Everyone, thank you for your feedback. I appreciate it. Eric asks, aside from filling gaps with volunteering, what about putting yourself on your resume as a consultant? I don't suggest that, Eric. Being a consultant only increases your stock for jobs that are looking for consultants, but it lowers your stock for jobs that are not. So we'll talk about that in session 4. Good question. Deanne asks, Karen Suchman is on the call. Will she get credit for the participation? She will get credit for the participation if she is registered on the GoToWebinar site. You know how when you joined this session, Deanne, you received an email and then you entered your information and then you received the GoToWebinar link. Let me show you here. So you first registered on the, give me just one moment so I can show you here. Okay, so you first registered on Eventbrite, right? So this is where you register. And when you did, it says register to receive event link. Well, when you did that, you received, let me show you the email that you should have received, if I can get that over here. It looks like I can't open it, but you get an email from GoToWebinar, and I actually just opened it. Okay, I just emailed myself the invitation, and the invitation that you receive in your email looks something like this. Let me find it here. Sorry, I don't want to keep everybody on hold, but I'm not finding the email. But it was something from GoToWebinar. And then when you receive that, you click on the link that's sent to you from GoToWebinar. And then you, after you click on that, you are in our system, right? In our GoToWebinar system. That's how you get credit for it at the end. So ask her to go into GoToWebinar and register. AJ asks, I created a volunteer with a 9-year program at my church supporting the military. Does that count, or do I have to do more? I will soon lose my... Okay, so what you do, AJ, is we'll talk about that more in the 4th session, right? So in the 4th session, we'll talk more about that. So whether it's more or not, you'll get the answer to that in the resume session. Patricia, I haven't volunteered. Is there anything else that might help me? Volunteering or interning. Right now it's premature to answer that question for you, Patricia. When you get to session 3 and 4, you'll have the answer to that question. Are you the same guy who did the presentation at Lake Forest? I am, AJ. I'm the same guy, except you can't see me. You can just hear me. Do I sound the same, or do I sound vastly different? Okay. Okay, great. Well, everybody, thank you for your participation. It was great to have you all. It's a pleasure to have you part of this presentation. I look forward to talking to you all next week. Enjoy your weekend. Go watch the World Cup. It's Brazil versus Netherlands. It should be a great match, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.